Hi, I'm Selena from Annie's Bookstop of Worcester, and I'm here with Dan Gutman, who is a children's book author, and he's written children's picture books, and he's also now started to write graphic novels. So I'm going to let him talk to you about some of his work. And how would you describe what you write?
Well, hi, everybody. Good to be here. It's funny, I write all kinds of books, everything from, picture books for kindergarten kids to middle grade novels for kids up to sixth grade. If I was to say one thing that tied all of them together, it's that I like to take an ordinary kid and put the kid into an extraordinary situation. Like, for instance, I did a book about a kid who runs for president of the United States. All right. One example, a kid who invents a machine that does your homework automatically. Okay, putting a kid into an extraordinary situation. A kid gets the chance to take one shot, and if he sinks the shot, he wins $1 million. So I figure this is the kind of stories that kids can fantasize about, and that's what I like to write, basically.
Great. Now, what can readers expect from your newest book or your favorite book?
Well, I'll tell you, my newest book, Selena, is this is interesting. It's called Houdini and Me, and it's of course about the famous magician and escape artist Harry Houdini. And I'm really proud of this because it concerns magic, which everybody loves. Houdini, who is one of those few people that, like, even kids in first grade, they know who Harry Houdini was, even though he died in 1926. There's like certain figures in American history, like Babe Ruth, Marilyn Monroe, Elvis. Everybody knows who these people are, and Harry Houdini, for some reason, is one of those people. So that's why one of the reasons why I did a book on Houdini.
Fantastic. And so what do you think draws readers to these kinds of books?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I think a kid can fantasize that he or she is in this situation, and in this situation is that a kid, see, I'll tell you the story of the book, actually.
Okay.
I was walking down the street. I live in New York City, okay? And I was walking down the street, and I live on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. And I saw this plaque, there's plaques on the walls that said that, famous people lived here. And I saw this plaque on the wall. I hope you can make this out.
Yes.
Yeah, Harry Houdini lived 8 blocks from where I live today in Manhattan. And, I'd done a lot of historical fiction, and I thought, maybe I could do something with Harry Houdini. That would be really cool. So that's what really inspired the book. And what was your question again, Selena?
That was fine. The inspiration for the book. That's great.
Oh, that was the inspiration for the book. And I thought a lot of my books start with the question, what if, So I thought, what if a kid lived in Harry Houdini's house on 113th Street, right near me? And what if that kid somehow figured out a way to communicate with the spirit of Harry Houdini, who died almost 100 years ago? That would make a really interesting story. So that was the inspiration for the book.
Oh, great. And what were the steps that you took to bring it from initial inspiration to the finished book?
Yeah, sure. Well, with me, some authors, I figure they just sit at their computer and start typing into a blank screen. They must be geniuses. I can't write like that. I'm a planner, and I've got to plan my whole story out from start to finish. And that's what I do with these cards, plain old file cards. I start jotting down ideas, anything that pops into my head, a piece of dialogue, a description of a character, some trivial fact, whatever it is, I write it down on one file card. And once I have like 100, sometimes 200 cards, I'll lay them all out on a flat surface, and I'll start grouping the cards together that go together. And little by little, I'll sort of weave together a story that makes sense from start to finish. So this is my outline for the book. And I might spend a month just doing the outline. And I'll show you the first card, actually. because the first card was this idea I had. I was born in Harry Houdini's house. And that turned out to be the first sentence in the book too. So after I have planned out the whole story on my file cards, then I'll sit down, I'll take the first card off the pile, and I'll start to write the book. And in the beginning, I just throw the ideas on the screen. You know, I don't care if the spelling is wrong or the grammar is wrong or anything like that. I just throw the ideas on the screen because I can fix them later. And every day I'll sit down on my computer and I'll look at what I wrote the previous day and I'll fix it. You know, I'll correct it, I'll clean it up. And eventually I'll get to the point when I finish the story that I can't think of any more corrections to make. And that's how I know the story's done. Then I turn it into my editor. So that's basically my process. Every author has their own process for doing it. But I used to do this on computer. And I found that on computer, when the outline got too long, it didn't fit on one screen anymore. And it became difficult to cut and paste back and forth. So I started using the file cards instead, and they work a lot better for me.
That's a great thing. I've never heard of doing it that way, but it makes a lot of sense. I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what kind of research went into writing the book?
Yeah, for Houdini, I did a lot of research. And for all my books, I do really. First of all, I read like probably a dozen books about Harry Houdini, where I got, I'd say, most of my information. I also went on YouTube and watched videos of Houdini and videos about Houdini. There is no longer a Houdini museum in Manhattan that I went to, and that was helpful. And what else? I Googled his name. I learned everything I could learn about Harry Houdini. And that's what I do with any of my books that involve like historical figures.
Okay. Were there a lot of cool facts and findings that you found out about him that didn't make it into the book?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I only use like a fraction of what I uncover because, you know, when I'm reading, say, a biography of someone, I read the whole thing cover to cover, and I just kind of, when I come across a fact or a sentence that sparks my imagination or makes me think, hey, I could use that somewhere in the book, that's when I jot it down on a card. So a lot of stuff I would just ignore, or I jot down on the card and I wouldn't use. So like, for instance, I learned that, you know, Houdini was rumored to be a spy for the American government during World War I. Yeah, so I actually, that was interesting, but I couldn't fit it into the story, so I didn't use it. He was also an inventor. He actually patented like one of those diving things that you could, like a scuba outfit, you know, but it was like an all-encompassing thing that you put around you. I didn't put that in the story either. And another thing was he had a long-term friendship with Arthur Conan Doyle, the author of Sherlock Holmes. And they had kind of a contentious relationship, which was interesting to me, but I didn't think the readers would care that much, so I didn't put stuff like that in. I just would pluck out things that I thought people would find fascinating or lent themselves to the story.
Great. What was the biggest challenge in writing and putting out your newest book? And how did you overcome that challenge?
I had a couple of challenges. One of them was like 5 minutes after I took this picture, okay? I should say like a minute after I took this picture, and I'm on the porch of this building. It's a brownstone on 113th Street. And suddenly the door opens up and the guy comes out and he starts screaming at me because it was a single family home. It wasn't an apartment building. And the guy comes out and he says, "Get off my porch. You know, I have young kids, leave me alone. This is an invasion of privacy and you're trespassing, and get out of here and don't ever come back." So I felt terrible, first of all. And I slunk away, and I didn't tell him who I was or that I was working on a book about Houdini at all. I just left. And then when I got home, my wife says to me, she says, "Hey, you know, when the book finally comes out, why don't you give a copy to that guy?" So I said, yeah, I'm going to do that. So when the day the book came out, I put it in a plastic bag because I didn't want to confront the guy. I just wanted to leave it on his doorknob, and I inserted a letter with the book saying, I'm really sorry I trespassed on your property. I'm the guy you yelled at. I was working on this book. I wanted to give you a copy as my way of apologizing for trespassing. And I left it there and I ran away before he could come out. And then literally a half an hour later, my phone rings because my business card was in with the book. And he called me up and he said, oh, I'm so excited about the book. I'm so sorry I yelled at you. I would love for you and your wife to come over and get a tour of the house. And so we did. We took a tour of Houdini's house, and a lot of the original woodwork is there, and fixtures that are there. And now the guy who was screaming at me is a friend of mine.
Wow, what a story.
That was a challenge that I kind of overcame, which was fun. Had a happy ending.
That's a great story. So what else can we expect from you in the future?
Oh, a lot. Well, probably the thing people know most about me is I do this long-running series called My Weird School.
Yeah.
It's about a school where the kids are pretty normal, but all the grown-ups are a little bit crazy. And so we just started, hang on one second. We just started doing some My Weird School graphic novels. And this is the first one already came out. Mr. Corbett is in Orbit. It's a My Weird School book in color, 96 pages of color, and it's really fun. So I had so much fun doing this, Selena. I got to tell you, most of my books I read on the computer, all my books, I should say. And I started out trying to do this on computer, but it just wasn't working for me. So I decided instead to just draw the book. So I just took blank paper and pen and ink, and I just kind of made panels and did cartoon balloons and stick figures. And I drew the book for my wonderful illustrator, Jim Palat, and he turned it into this masterpiece. So this one already came out in January, and Jim and I have already finished the second book in the series. And I just yesterday finished the third graphic novel. It's going to be called Dorks in New York. And the kids are going to take a trip to New York, and what could possibly go wrong. So I had so much fun writing. I think I've never had, and here it is. Here it is. I don't think I've ever had more fun doing a book project than I did working on this one. So I just finished it yesterday. So now I have to photograph the whole thing because this is the only copy in the world, Selena. You see, that's my drawings. And so I have to photograph the whole thing before I can give it to Jim to work on his stuff because he lives in Arizona. So we're 2,000 miles apart. And we've been working together for 17 years. We've done 80 books together now. And we've only met once in person. So anyway, I don't remember what your question was, but I hope I answered it.
Yes, you did. What else can we expect from you in the future?
Oh, there's one other thing you can expect from me.
Yes.
Which I didn't mention. Those biography series for kids,
Right.
The Who Was books with the big heads on the covers? Well, I started doing a series of biographies myself. And the series, I wanted to focus not just on the conventional, so-and-so was born, lived, and died kind of biographies. I wanted to focus on the more unusual aspects of these people's lives, the funny things. So the series is called Wait, What? And the first two books were Albert Einstein Was a Dope, and Muhammad Ali Was a Chicken. And the next one, it hasn't come out yet, it's coming out in September, is Amelia Earhart is on the Moon. And the fourth book, which will be coming out next year, is Teddy Roosevelt Was a Moose. So it's kind of my take on biographies, but I just focus on the weird stuff about their lives.
Those sound fantastic. I love it.
So that's what you can expect to me in the future.
Could you give us an idea, like read us a little bit about, so we can get a flavor of one of your books?
You don't care which one?
Nope.
Okay. Well, if I was going to read one of them, I mean, most of my books, they're, 150 pages long. I'm not going to read one of them, but
No.
I could start off Rappy the Raptor. He's a rapping raptor who raps. And these are picture books for, like, kindergarten kids. They're really fun. And I don't do the illustrations, of course. A guy named Tim Bowers made these wonderful pictures. And I've never met him at all. He lives in Cincinnati, I believe. But it starts like this. I'm Rappy the Raptor, and I'd like to say I may not talk in the usual way. I'm rhyming and rapping all of the time. I'm talking when I'm walking, and I'm rhyming when I climb. Rappy lives in a treehouse, as you can see. I'm rapping at my school, and I'm rapping with my peeps. Sometimes they even tell me that I'm rapping in my sleep. Now, how did it happen that I started rapping? Well, here's my story in all its glory. Should I go on, Selena, or stop there?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay.
A little more.
Here's Rappy's parents. I was born in a tree back in Memphis, Tennessee. My mom, that's Mappy, and my dad, that's Pappy, took one look at me and got, oh, so what?
Happy?
Happy, right. It's a rhyming book.
That's great. I love it.
When I popped from my egg, hip hopping on my leg, I tried to fly, and I don't know why, but the next thing I knew, I was falling from the
sky. Oh, those are great. I love it.
Yeah, so that's Rappy the Raptor. There's actually 6 Rappy books altogether, and they're all these kind of rhyming rapping stories.
Those are great. The kids must love those.
It's fun to read to kids in kindergarten classes. They really get into it.
I can imagine. All right, now I have some questions for you about being a writer. What's your favorite part of being a writer on the whole writing and publishing process?
Honestly, and I know it sounds corny and all, but my favorite part is, like, I get these incredible emails from parents and teachers and librarians telling me my son, my daughter, my student hated to read. They wouldn't pick up a book. And then they started reading, like, your My Weird School series. And now all they want to do is read your books. And I find them hiding under the covers with a flashlight at night, reading them. And it just makes me feel so good. Like, I didn't get into this to save the world or anything, but by just writing some silly words on a page, I can make a positive impact in some kid's life. And that's really rewarding. And that's, I think, the best part about what I do.
That's wonderful. Now, what do you think has been the greatest lesson in your journey so far?
I've been doing this for a long time. I've been doing this. My first book came out in 1985, actually. And if I learned anything, and I learned it pretty quick, is like the value of persistence. I think, like everybody, I got rejected a million times in the beginning. And I still get rejected to this day sometimes. But some people, they get rejected and they think, okay, I'm no good. My writing is no good, and I'm just going to forget about it. But you really have to be persistent. I've had some books that were rejected 20 times before I found a publisher for them. And so learning the power of persistence was really important. And also the power of taking the initiative. Especially when it comes to promoting yourself as authors, there's only so much your publisher is going to do for you. And it's really up to you to promote yourself on social media, going to bookstores, going to school visits and conferences and things like that. So that's been the most important thing, I think, that I learned in my years of doing this.
Okay. Now, what piece of advice would you want to share with other authors? I mean, aside from be persistent.
Don't be boring. That's my biggest piece of advice. But other than that, I will suggest to you, especially for the kids out there who like to write, you might want to check out My Weird Writing Tips. It's not some boring writing book. It's a My Weird School book. So it's funny and silly and crazy, but it will help you with your writing. And I'll give you one tip right here. That I discovered on my own that I think anybody could use. And I think it's really helpful, at least for me. When you write something, okay, look at your first draft and read it out loud. And here's the trick. The trick is, while you're reading it out loud, pretend to be somebody else. Pretend to be a friend or a teacher or a complete stranger. And while you're reading what you wrote, almost through somebody else's eyes, you could see the mistakes that you made, and you could see how your writing could be better. And that's something that I do in my writing, and I think it would work for anybody.
Good advice. Very good advice. Okay, now questions about you as a person. What is or are your passions when you're not writing? And how do you make time for the hobbies and things that you love?
Well, let's see. I guess my favorite thing to do is I like to ride my bike. And I live right across the street from Central Park in New York. So just about every day I take a loop around the park on my bike, usually after lunch, because I feel like I've accomplished something all morning and I deserve to get out there and get some exercise. The other hobby that I have actually is sort of business related. I collect addresses of famous people. And that's how I stumbled upon the Houdini book, actually. And I don't know if I'm going to turn my computer, because I have on the wall of my office, you see that big map over there on the wall?
Mm-hmm.
That's a map of Manhattan. And all those little white things are famous people who lived at certain addresses. And there's like a pin and a string that goes from the name to the address. And I kind of like keep track of where all these famous people lived in Manhattan. And that's sort of my hobby. And it also, helped with the Houdini book. Who
Wow,
lives
that's
8
cool.
blocks away from me.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So what are some of your writing related hobbies? That is a kind of a writing related hobby.
Writing. Other than that, I can't think of any. I like to play ping pong. That's not writing related. I like to throw frisbees. I like to, all the usual stuff, go to the movies and plays and concerts and lectures and all the cultural things about New York that contributed to me wanting to live here.
Okay. So what does your writing space look like? And what do you need to have around you when you're writing or editing?
Okay. Well, I live in a 2-bedroom apartment, and one of the bedrooms is my office where I'm sitting right now. It's a small room, but it's got everything that I need. My friends kind of make fun of me because they're all paperless, all they have on their desk is a computer. And I need my letter opener, my scissors, and my magnifying glass, my highlighter and staplers and all kinds of stuff that writers use. And so that's pretty much what I like to keep everything I need at my fingertips, so I don't have to waste time finding stuff. But it's a small room, and on the shelves behind me, those are all my books. I keep one copy of each of my books, so that if I need to refer to it for any reason, it's there. So and this is my guest bedroom when people come to visit. And during the early stages of the pandemic, my daughter moved in with my wife and I, and this was her bedroom, and she kicked me out for about a year, where I set up a folding table next door, and that was my office. But now she's gone, and this is my office.
Wow. Okay. Now, while you're writing, do you prefer music, silence? What do you prefer?
I need silence, mostly. Yeah. Sometimes I'll put on instrumental music with no lyrics. And the nice thing, for some reason, while I was working on the graphic novel, I found that I could listen to music. Excuse me, sorry, hang on. I'm going to take a sip of my water, which I also have with me all the time. And what was I saying? Oh, so I was able to listen to music while I was working on the graphic novel, which I've never been able to do working on the computer. So that was really fun for me to be able to listen to music for the first time, because I really have to focus my attention while I'm writing.
Okay. Writers very often have furry or feathered or otherwise non-human companions with them while they're working. And do you have any, and do they help or hinder you in your work?
I do not. 6 years ago, before my wife and I moved to New York, we lived in a house in South Jersey and we had cats. I loved my cats. And they were indoor, outdoor cats. So they would run around the backyard, killing rodents and things like that. But when we moved to New York, we thought it would be cruel to coop up the cats in a small New York apartment and not let them go outside anymore. So we found a new home for our cats, and I do not have any furry friends now.
Okay. All right. Well, when you were living there, did they help you with your work or?
Actually, yes. Sometimes a cat would jump up and sit on my lap while I was working, which was also, a nice feeling. And also it kind of kept me in my seat because I didn't want to disturb the cat, So it kept me working.
Okay, that's about right. Okay, I just have two more questions for you.
Yeah.
One is, where can people find your work aside from Annie's Bookstop of Worcester? And this is the normal plug I have to give in every video. You can buy any of Dan's books at Annie's Bookstop of Worcester if you send us email at orders@anniesbooksworcester.com, or you can call us at 508-796-5613. But where else could people get your books?
And if I'm not mistaken, Selena, I signed some book plates for you, didn't I?
I don't recollect getting them, but
really? Oh, okay.
Oh, yes. We did get them. Yes.
Yeah, I signed 100 book plates. So the first 100 people to make an order, I would assume, could get an autographed copy. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay.
That's correct.
Other than Annie's, and thanks to Annie for sharing my books with kids. Any independent bookstore or Barnes and Noble or online bookseller should sell my stuff. And people can also go to my website, which is just www.dangutman.com, and you can order my books that way too.
Okay. Thank you. And the last question I have is, how can we follow your work and share your awesomeness?
Well, besides my website, I have a Facebook fan page, which I hope you'll check out. I post stuff every day, hopefully interesting, unusual, and not just selling stuff posts. And you can also follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Dan Gutman Books.
Okay. Well, that sounds great. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. And we will hopefully be seeing you sometime when you get to Worcester, and maybe you'll do a book signing for us.
I would love to do that, Selena. And thanks for inviting me and organizing this whole thing. And I just say to everybody who's watching this to keep reading lots of books out there, but especially mine.
Definitely. Thanks so much again.
Okay,
See you.
Thanks so much, Selena.
Okay, bye.
Bye.